So this is just a quick overview of the Vatic Pro V7 16mm paddle and how I like to have it set up for myself. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is weight my paddles. I usually play with paddles around 8.4 to 8.5 ounces. Coming from the factory, a lot of these paddles vary in weight. These Vatic Pros so far haven't really varied that much. I like to try to get the weight of the paddle up to about 8.4 or 8.5 ounces. In terms of lead placement, I put lead tape starting from a little bit below the sweet spot all the way up to the top corners. Between 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock is where I put my lead tape. The Vatic Pro comes pretty balanced. So since it's relatively balanced from the start, I like to add weight towards the top a little bit more to get a little more power on my drives. So I don't like to put weight only at 12 o'clock. That's where you would get probably the most power. If you put lead at the sides, it brings the sweet spot out a little bit wider. With the elongated paddle shapes, the sweet spots tend to be a little bit more narrow. So I like to put the lead tape on the sides to help bring the sweet spot out towards the sides. I know a lot of people like to add weight down by the throat. With this paddle being a little bit more balanced, shifting the weight up more towards the top helps me generate a little bit more power. Alright, so the next thing I like to do is I like to remove the grip that it comes with. There's nothing really wrong with this grip, but I wanted to try to reduce the grip circumference a little bit. I like to play with smaller grips. With a smaller grip circumference, I find that you get a lot more maneuverability with your wrist. I'm going to try to reduce the grip size a bit by using a thin replacement grip. So the gearbox handle I'm used to has more of a flare off the butt cap. It's kind of a subtle difference, but okay, so I'm going to remove the old grip. Under the grip, you can see there are these two white pieces that help shape the octagon. And then on the edge, you can see that it's not exposed honeycomb like on a lot of paddles. I'm going to start building up the butt cap of the Vatic Pro. To build up the butt cap, I'm just going to use duct tape. To increase the flare shape, I'm going to start with the thin piece near the bottom of the butt cap. Alright, so I have a couple layers near the very bottom, and now I'm going to have a slightly fatter piece go on top of those two layers. Alright, so now that I've built up the butt cap with the duct tape, I'm going to start with the thinner replacement grip. So I like to start right around like 7 or 8 o'clock on the bottom. And the key is to keep good even tension while moving around. Especially since I'm trying to reduce the grip size as much as possible, I keep the overlap to a minimum. Alright, since I have a two-handed backhand, I like to grip up as high as I can up towards the throat. So the tricky part here is how to cut a nice tapered triangle to finish it clean. So you want to find the spot where you want to start the cut. You have to unwrap it halfway or so. Alright, so the cut should look something like this. You just use the finishing tape at the top. Alright, all finished. And since I don't really like replacing the replacement grip all the time, it's usually best to play with an over grip on top. Alright, all set. Grip is finished. So I've been playing with this paddle for a couple of weeks now. In terms of how it plays, coming from the gearbox, which is a very control-oriented paddle and very unforgiving, the Vatic Pro 16mm is a much more balanced paddle. More power than the gearbox, but nothing crazy where I can't control my dinks or my drops anymore. Since this paddle is a lot more forgiving, I'm finding myself missing a lot less when I can't find the sweet spot. Yeah, the performance of this paddle is very balanced. It's not a super power paddle, it's not a super control paddle. It's kind of good at everything.